The hospitality sector, which includes hotels, restaurants, transport services and recreational facilities, has been the hardest hit by the GDP drop, with spending at eateries and hotels grounding to an almost complete halt and plunging by 99.9%. Joining us now to unpack the effects of this in the industry is the CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshifhiwa Tshivhengwa. Tshifhiwa, good evening and thank you for your time tonight. No surprises there. The trade sector, which of course includes hospitality, restaurants and the transport sector, weighing heavily on the GDP print.
No, absolutely. Look, we have been saying this since the lockdown began. Since we started to see the job losses, and we started to see companies closing down. We started to see people not traveling, not going to restaurants, alcohol being banned, cigarettes being banned. And we have been saying that this is going to have a devastating impact on the economy. And this is the result of what we've been talking about. And we're not saying that we should have opened irresponsibly. We're saying that we could have opened earlier in a responsible fashion, as we have demonstrated. And we should have at least tried to mitigate, this contraction of the GDP by at least, some reasonable figures. And that's what we've been saying, that as an industry, we are travel ready. Let us operate. Let us make some income. Let us keep people at their jobs.
Well, we're already in a technical recession in March before we went into the lockdown. How badly were you affected then in terms of occupancy?
Look, before we went on lockdown, we were going to be looking at one of the best years in terms of recovery. If you look back at 2019, we were dealing with issues around unabridged birth certificate. We're dealing with issues around visa, countries that were not visa waiver, and many other things that were, within the tourism industry. But we were looking at a better year, then COVID came, and then the lockdown came. And that's why we've been advocating to say, let's do things in a measured way to ensure that, the loss that we're going to see is not permanent. Right now, we're looking at many companies that have closed their doors. We're looking at about 300,000 people that will lose their jobs. And if we don't do something about opening international borders, we're going to see many more people that are going to lose their jobs. And that's why we've been saying that let tourism operate, open up international borders. Let us breathe some good fresh air into this economy to make sure that, it picks up in the next quarter. Tourism is one of those, low-hanging fruit, and it can do that, in an easy way and in a faster way.
Largest contraction we've seen in 90 years, nearly, they say. Of course, there's weak growth, which means people have less money. In fact, more and more people are, as you're mentioning, unemployed. 300,000 just in your sector. There is, of course, about 2 million people who've lost their jobs now during this lockdown. Are you not confident that domestic travel alone will boost the fate of this sector?
Look, domestic tourism is comprised of various, subsegments. You've got, government travel, which is not happening at the moment. Number two, you've got corporate travel, of which, you're looking at around 6%, load factor from the airlines. And then you're looking at leisure travel, which is, usually visiting friends and relatives. And we have seen some uptick when people, are going to various places across the country, staying at accommodation and really contributing to our sector. But you need government travel to happen, and you need corporate travel to happen. Without those two happening, leisure travel, as much as it's good, is not enough to sustain the industry. That's why we're calling for the international markets to be open and the borders to be open so that we can sustain whatever we have from domestic travel with international travel. And therefore, we will be able to sustain some of the jobs within this sector, and many other businesses will be able to open. So it's important that we have a good mix of international and domestic. Remember, international brings around 120 billion rand per annum, which is around 336 million rand per day. And, there's a lot of people that are employed within that space, around 300,000 people. So if we do this right, based on the protocols that we've put together, we should be able to have a win-win combination of both domestic leisure travel and both international leisure travel. And of course, there's a lot of people that want to travel to South Africa because they own second homes. And some of them are investors, and some of them, purely wants to come here and enjoy summer. So, we need to do that fast. And that's why we've been saying to government, we've got around 7-8 days to make this decision. And we should make it fast so that, we can instill confidence in the international markets.
There are two issues that I need you to address. One would be that you're calling for this reopening of international travel as we are seeing second waves in certain parts of the world. India, the number of infections in the United States not coming down. We are seeing, of course, in other parts as well, South Korea as well, reporting some new cases coming out of those places. I'm sure government will be quite reluctant to open up for international travel, seeing those numbers. But two, I heard last week the Minister of Tourism saying there are those in the hospitality sector who are not adhering to those protocols. For example, it's reported that they are opening up their establishments way over the curfew time that has been allocated, and instead of in house consumption, they are selling takeaways. I mean, there's been some issues there in terms of enforcement.
Yes, you look, the first part of your question in terms of, international markets having more cases, let's deal with it from this point of view. Let's look at the cases per 1,000 people or 100,000 people and say, do we have, how many cases does South Africa have per 1,000 people or per 100,000 people or per million people compared to the other countries? If we are higher than those countries, it means that they are not importing any case to our country. If we are lower, of course it means that. But if we're higher, then it's a different story for them as well. So we need to look at it from scientific point of view to say, are we importing any cases into South Africa? And of course, we shouldn't assume that, when other countries are having more cases, it means that those people that have COVID are going to be traveling to South Africa. People who usually travel are very much conscious. They're coming to Africa. They check their health, in a very serious way. And usually they go to their travel clinics to make sure that they're checked up. And when they travel, they travel in a top, health state. Number two, on the issue of protocol compliance and adherence, look, we have received a letter from the minister stating that, there were some that were found not to be complying. And this is something that we're dealing with. We've put together an app that will help people to comply. We're going to be printing posters for businesses to help them comply. Myself, I went to Mpumalanga region, last weekend to make sure that people are complying. I will be going to Limpopo starting from Thursday to make sure that people are complying. And I will go to every province to make sure that people are complying. It is something that we have to work together to make sure that we educate people about this pandemic and they understand what they need to do to comply. So that's something that we're working actively as a Tourism Business Council together with our constituents.
Expected rebound back to, well, shall I say 2019 levels or even earlier than that? How long do you think that is going to take?
Look, the rebound is going to take, quite a long time. If we're talking about going back to the levels of 2019, or even the levels of 2018, we're looking at around 2 years, 2.5 years. I don't think that businesses are going to, make any profit for the next 2.5 years, let alone break even. So we're looking at a tough time for tourism. We're looking at just to grease the wheels of the value chain to make sure that we're able, to get, things moving forward and people getting back to work other than making profit. So it's going to be a tough road ahead. Like I've said, government travel is essential for domestic. Corporate travel is essential. International travel then comes on top and make sure that, we're able to make some profit. What we're looking at now is to say, majority of the people that are coming from international markets have received, some governments checks, free money from their own country. They have some money to spend. The exchange rate is favorable. We have value for money. So let's get these people who wants to come, which is very few people. Remember, 2.6 million people travel from overseas market to South Africa. The rest travel from our neighboring country. So you're looking at a very small number of people who wants to come to South Africa, and I believe we can manage that, and I believe we can do that safely.
A 7-day timeline, is that wishful thinking, or are you actively engaging with the powers that be on that 7 days to get a response?
Look, we have submitted our proposal, and we believe that this decision lies squarely with the president or with the cabinet, and we believe that whenever the cabinet meets, which will hopefully be in the next 7-8 days, that decision must be on the table. It must be decided on. It's the last big thing that's waiting to be opened. We've opened, largely every part of the economy. We've got 58 million South Africans, going about, their business every day. adhering to protocols, wearing masks. We don't believe that adding another 2 million tourists over a period of time will add any risk. I mean, look, if you look at the number of people that will be visiting and you annualize it, it's not a lot of people that are going to be in the country at a specific time, probably less than 200,000, for 1 million South Africans that are going to be in the country. So the risk is very low. And, the rewards are very high. And we need to open up and make sure that, we save the few jobs that we're left with. Remember, we employ more people than mining and more people, than many other sectors. So it's important that we maintain these jobs, and it's important that, we show the international markets that we are, in business. We want people to come to this country, and we are serious about tourism.